Good evening and welcome all of you to the 2023 Australian Mental Health Prize. My name, as you can see in dazzling lights, is Alan Fells, and I'm one of the two co-chairs of the Australian Mental Health Advisory Committee, along with Lucinda Brogden. And now I'd like to start by welcoming Dr. Peter McKenzie to the stage. He's a University of New South Wales alumnus and well-known Aboriginal person from the historic La Perouse Aboriginal community in Sydney. He's had diverse experience as a practicing artist, musician, project manager, university lecturer, Aboriginal ambassador overseas, and arts grant recipient, researcher, and Aboriginal committee member for several organisations. So I invite you to deliver welcome.
Thank you very much. Sometimes it's hard to live up to that income. Anyway, a very good afternoon or evening to you all. Attending today's announcement of the winners of the, I haven't got my specs, not these ones, the real ones. So I might hesitate here a little because once upon a time I thought I was perfect and could remember all this stuff, but I can't, obviously. So here we go. Announcement of the winners of the 2023 Australian Mental Health Prize here at UNSW. My name is Dr. Peter McKenzie. I am a descendant and elder from the La Perouse Aboriginal community, which is located just down the road here on the shores of Botany Bay, or as we call it, Kamay, here in our beautiful city of Sydney. And on behalf of the La Perouse Local Aboriginal Land Council and the elders and members of our Aboriginal community, I am very honoured to represent them in most warmly welcoming you here in our traditional saltwater country. We La Perouse people take pride in being the oldest and most culturally significant Aboriginal community in the Sydney region, and the Welcome to Country is our contemporary interpretation of receiving visitors and new friends such as you who may wish to visit our areas within the traditional land, or as we call it, country. We also pay respect to the memory of the Kamay Gull, the Murrawara Dial people who traditionally occupied this part of the Sydney coast, and not to mention the Cadigal people of the Sydney CBD area. We appear to be sort of right on the corner of those three nations, and they are three of 29 Aboriginal groups that occupied the Sydney Basin and are collectively known as the Eora group. This ceremony allows us to pay respect and to acknowledge our elders, past and present, of all cultures and all religions and creeds, and to reflect on our shared history and build a vision for a prosperous and a reconciled future. So again, on behalf of the La Perouse community, we hope you have an enjoyable and COVID-safe journey back home and are secure in the knowledge, we hope, that you felt that you were made very welcome in our traditional country. I'm Dr. Peter Mack. Good evening and thank you.
Thanks very much, Dr. Peter Mack. I would also respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are meeting, pay my respects to elders past and present, and I also pay my respects to people with lived experience, past or present, and also I would like to express my support for the yes vote in the coming referendum. I'd like to welcome the Assistant Minister for Mental Health and Suicide Prevention and Rural and Regional Health, which is an extremely important part of the health system for mental health and in other respects. The Honourable Emma McBride MP, who'll present the awards today. Today we're here to honour the 2023 winners of the Australian Mental Health Prize. The University of New South Wales, through the discipline of psychiatry, has hosted the annual Australian Mental Health Prize since 2016, and their effort and contribution to this happening and becoming an important event on the Australian mental health calendar, I want to express my gratitude to them for that. The Australian Mental Health Prize recognises, sorry, I've got a husky voice for some reason. I keep claiming it makes me more sexy, but no one seems to agree. The Australian Mental Health Prize recognises Australians who have made outstanding contributions to either the promotion of mental health or the prevention and treatment of mental illness. Over the past 8 years, the prize has recognised advocates, researchers, carers and more from all across the spectrum of mental health in Australia. The commonality between our winners is the impact their work has had on improving the lives of those impacted by mental health issues. This year, we're continuing to recognise achievements across 4 categories: professional, lived experience, Aboriginal Torres Strait Island, and community hero. And the expansion of the prize to these categories has led to a great diversity of nominations showcasing advocates from across the country. I'd now like to introduce the University of New South Wales Vice-Chancellor and President, Professor Attila Brunga.
Thank you kindly, Alan. And thank you very much, Dr. Peter Mack, for your wonderful and warm welcome to country. It's my honour to welcome everyone here tonight because, as you said, UNSW is very proud to be able to host these awards. We're very proud to be able to do right across the university what we can to tackle some of the challenges facing Australians and people facing challenges right around the globe. Especially warm welcome to you, Minister. Thank you very much for coming here tonight. Thank you very much for your advocacy, passion and leadership in this space, which we at University of New South Wales really do appreciate. Because Australia strives to continue to be a leader in mental health, thanks to the years and years of hard work by people right across the sector, many of whom are here today and some of whom we'll recognise today. This evening we are celebrating absolutely outstanding contributions that you've all made to improving the mental health landscape for all Australians. And when I look around the room and when I look at the prizes, Alan, I also note the incredible diversity of work that's going on. And I think that highlights that there's no one size fits all. When the Australian Mental Health Prize started here at UNSW in 2016 as a way of reducing stigma, raising awareness through celebrating truly outstanding individuals and their efforts, this prize has now developed into expanded, as Alan said, to 4 categories last year. And I think this recognises the development of the mental health sector, but also the challenge that we face and how multiplicity of perspectives must be brought to bear on this particular challenge. The impact of our winners' work is wide-ranging and unique, with tailored specialist approaches for different communities, innovative support for a diverse array of mental health challenges. I would also like to acknowledge people here, people watching online, who have lived experience of mental ill health and recovery, and the experience of people who've been their carers, families, or supporters. UNSW's broader vision is to improve lives globally, and from here in Kensington, right across the far reaches of Australia, and right around the world. So we're very proud to be playing a role in the promotion of mental health the prevention and treatment of mental illness through our teaching, our research, our engagement, and also by supporting such incredible prizes such as this. Our mental health initiatives come from many areas in the university. For example, our Student Mental Health Strategy and Wellbeing, launched in 2022, takes a holistic approach to student wellbeing, with a student-led prevention and awareness initiatives and coordinated responses to tackle many challenging situations that students uniquely face. Project Mind is a great example of the initiatives born out of this strategy. It brings together teams of students and challenges participants to create innovative solutions to address the mental health struggles that our student community faces daily. Each year the theme differs, with topics such as mental health inequity, mental health literacy. This year it is about empowering individuals to create change. By putting the me in mental health, teams are asked over 8 weeks to develop programs that enable individuals to impact their own mental health. 2 of the 9 solutions that the teams came up with are now being piloted in Mental Health Month. One that addresses social connections, and the other provides confidence to international students to speak up. Our mental health research was also recently boosted by a $7 million donation from James Packer and the Packer Family Foundation to establish the James Packer Chair in Mood Disorders, working within the Mind Gardens Neuroscience Network. This generous gift will support collaborative research and drive meaningful change in the vital field of healthcare. I'd also like to acknowledge the tremendous contribution and long-standing partnership of Toyota Material Handling Australia. Through our partnership over the years, UNSW has advanced important research into schizophrenia. We are, as you can tell, very proud of our record of working with philanthropic leaders to invest in mental health research, to try and help move the dial towards better mental health for all. But we know the challenge is a long way ahead of us, and there is much more to do. But to give us all hope and optimism for the future, I look forward to hearing tonight from our wonderful award winners as we celebrate the Australia Mental Health Prize for 2023. Thank you all again for coming.
Thanks, Professor Brungs. And once again, I want to acknowledge the work that the University of New South Wales has been doing in mental health and in supporting this prize. It's now my pleasure to welcome the Honourable Emma McBride to the stage. The Assistant Minister has been a member for Dobell since 2016. She's been a long-standing advocate well before becoming Assistant Minister for Mental Health in our country, acting as Shadow Minister for the portfolio since 2019, and I believe has just returned from Tonga, representing Australia at the 15th Pacific Health Ministers meeting. So despite all the incredible demands and busyness for you, you've come here tonight, we appreciate that. I welcome you to the stage.
Thank you, Alan, for that very warm introduction, and please pass on my regards to Lucy Brogden, your co-chair of the Mental Health Advisory Committee. To Attila, thank you so much to UNSW for hosting us again since 2016, and to have the chance to showcase the best of mental health in Australia, something that, as you say, gives us optimism and pride and real encouragement to continue is so important and so valued by our government. To Dr. Peter Mack, thank you again for your generous welcome. It's particularly, as we know, as we're in the last 3 weeks before the referendum, a time of where there's been much focus on your people. I'm so pleased that you are here tonight and to make us so very welcome on your traditional lands. Thank you for having me here tonight as part of, and thank you to UNSW for hosting us again this year. I would also like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet, and to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and to extend that respect to First Nations people who are here with us today. It is just 3 weeks until we'll go to the polls and vote in a historic referendum, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to accept the very generous offer of our First Nations people. And I cannot think of a policy area where it is more important to listen to an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voice than in health and in mental health. We must close the gap on every measure: life expectancy, child mortality and disease, overrepresentation, custody, and suicide. For a long time, governments with good intentions have invested billions of dollars trying to close the gap, but they haven't achieved lasting improvements because they haven't properly and consistently listened to people on the ground. It's self-evident that the current approach isn't working, and I believe that the voice is our best chance as a society, as a nation, to fix it. And no one thinks that the voice will instantly solve these intergenerational problems, but we will finally have the right approach, because we know that when we genuinely listen, that's when we get real results. So I encourage everyone here tonight to think deeply about your contribution to the upcoming referendum, and thank those who've spoken before me for your strong encouragement for the voice. I would also like to acknowledge anyone here with us today who may have a lived experience of mental ill health, including family members, carers and kin. Thank you for your very patient and generous contribution to improving our systems of support and care right here in New South Wales and right around Australia. We're all here today because mental health is an extremely important issue in cities, in towns, in suburbs, right around the country. And these awards recognise the people who are helping to innovate, to advocate, to challenge, and to make a real difference for all Australians. As you know, the impact of mental ill health is experienced by almost half of Australians in their lifetime, with 1 in 5 having experienced a mental health disorder in the last 12 months. These statistics are sobering, but they don't tell the full story of the impact of mental ill health on Australians, their loved ones, the people who care for them, or the professionals who provide them with treatment and support. That's why the government is working towards meaningful, community-led reforms to the mental health and suicide prevention systems. Reforms that will mean that all Australians have access to respectful and compassionate, culturally safe and culturally aware mental health care that puts them at the centre, wherever they live and whatever their circumstances. It's an ambitious agenda, but we are committed to it. And important to that agenda is working hand in hand with you, with researchers, with clinicians, with service providers, with people with lived and living experience. Because significant change cannot come from government. It must occur with our collective contribution and strong collaboration. Employment, financial security, education, housing, domestic and family violence, trauma and the justice system, all of these factors play a big part in people's mental health and well-being. If we want to support people to improve mental health and to reduce suicide, we need a whole of society response and integrated services that combine health, behavioural, social and community supports. But while there is much work that needs to be done, there has been significant progress and real success. And it's important that we celebrate this success, which is why we're here tonight, to share what works and to recognise and encourage innovation and to enhance impact. And that's what we're here to do tonight. So congratulations to everyone here tonight. You are part of our collective success, and I look forward to continuing to work with you as we embark on making a system of care and support that is more equitable, that is fairer, that's more accessible, that's more available, and importantly, more effective. So thank you and congratulations.
So thank you very much, Minister, for those very good remarks. And I'd invite you on the stage now to award the prizes, which this year are in the categories of Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander, Professional, Lived Experience and Community Hero. Minister, over to you.
So do we have you got the recipients there? Thank you very much. He's not a professor for no reason. Our first winner this evening is for the Australian Mental Health Prize in the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander category. Megan could not be with us tonight, but is represented by her family here. Megan is a renowned activist, prominent social justice advocate and arbiter for the voiceless and a law reformer. Throughout her life, Megan has advocated and fought for those who are most marginalised and vulnerable. Megan's advocacy is relentlessly aimed at platforming those who are unheard and unlistened to. Unfortunately, Megan can't be with us this evening because she's on country, but we do have a speech on her behalf, and I understand that her brother Andrew and his partner Fiona will accept this award on her behalf and make some remarks. Thank you.
Okay, my name's Andy Cracker. I'm a Menang boy of the Noongar Nation, which is Western Australia, Mount Barker. Megan's sorry she couldn't be here. She's in a remote community. I'd like to just send a special thoughts out to our parents, Eric and Phoebe Cracker. They're the reason why we're here, because like I said, Dad was a hard worker, and Mum showed all the discipline and housework that needed to be done, and made us the people we are today, to give us chances in life. It takes two of us today, because Megan is a superstar in our eyes, so I'll pass you on to Fiona. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge country and the beautiful welcome tonight from Dr. Peter McKenzie. My name is Fiona Rigney, and I am a proud, staunch Ngarrindjeri and a Marnjali woman. I'm a seasoned social worker, a very new criminologist, but most importantly, I'm a senior advisor for an incredible service which is known as No More Legal Service. No More provides free and independent community legal advice to survivors of historical child sexual abuse, and I'm fortunate to be able to lead the Aboriginal women's team. We do that alongside the rest of No More's Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander engagement team as part of a multidisciplinary team. But most importantly, we're here to celebrate and to accept on behalf of the Cracker family this award for Megan, and we are very humbled and very grateful. Megan, as we know, is currently out on country in remote Aboriginal communities doing some very important on-the-ground work. Megan last night sent through her speech whilst we heard the donkeys in the background and everything else that goes along with being in remote Aboriginal communities. And in the words of Megan Cracker, a phenomenal, staunch, incredible advocate and spokesperson for our people, I wanted to say this in her words. I want to thank the families and the individuals, the majority being First Nations people who do it tough, unjustly, unlike most other Australians. They have invited me into the private and public hardships of their lives. I stand alongside them, the poorest, the most marginalised, the forgotten and downtrodden, from who, amongst life's unfairness, has them account for the nation's abhorrent highest suicide rates, highest jailing rates, highest child removal rates. It is important for us who've achieved agency to give agencies to others without agency. Those of us who have accumulated power, some of that to use that to shift that power to those without it and to empower them. I'd like to thank the incredible Professor Patricia Dudgeon, Australia's first psychologist from the First Peoples, for nominating me. It has been an honour to do some important community work for Pat during the first half of this year. Ultimately, I cannot describe enough the gratitude for this nation's greatest social justice champion, Jerry Georgiadis, for mentoring me to be the best human and champion for other humans. We worked together on the Commonwealth Task Force, the Suicide Prevention National Indigenous Critical Response Service, where he was legendary. We have worked together since 2018, and we left the NICRS, we founded the National Suicide Prevention and Trauma Recovery Projects. 9 months or so, I wanted to acknowledge in 2020 to 2021, we reduced suicidality and self-harms of First Nation souls to the lowest ever recorded in Acacia, where 1 in 4 of WA's prisoners languish. Together, in 2020, in 8 weeks' work in Banksia Hill Children's Prison, we reduced the female prison population by more than a half. I attribute this also award in honour of the humble families, which we also need to remember. We support those who have nowhere else to turn. Not to mention Banksia Hill Detention Centre class action, now in the federal court, over 1,000 plaintiffs. Built it from humble beginnings, from nothing, multitude of voices, media campaigns, protests, standing together to come together against the incarceration and the locking up of our people. Now, what we ask on the 14th of October, when we as Australians come together to the polling booth, and we are all asked the question to alter the Constitution to recognise First People of Australia by establishing an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voice. Do you approve this proposed alteration? Please vote yes, and thank you on behalf of us.
Thank you so much, Fiona and Andy, and please give our biggest, warmest congratulations to Megan for her work. Our second winner today is for the Australian Mental Health Prize in the professional category. Professor Marie Toombs is recognised nationally and internationally for her work in Indigenous health perspectives in medicine and her research efforts devoted to improving mental health and wellbeing for Indigenous Australians. Congratulations, Professor Marie Toombs. Yeah, I'll practice at this.
Okay. Yama, I'd also like to acknowledge country that we're on this evening and pay my respect to elders past, present and emerging. I'd also like to acknowledge Aboriginal and or Torres Strait Islander peoples in the room and dignitaries and everybody for coming out this evening. So, wow, what a privilege. So, and I'd like to also acknowledge Professor Rebecca Ivers for what's the word I'm looking for? Nominating me. Thank you very much. All right. I am a proud Aboriginal woman from the Urali and Cooma Nations, and I come from a place called Gadooga. And I'm just wondering, and Brett, you're not allowed to answer this question, I'm just wondering if anybody here knows where Gadooga is. Okay, it's the Wild West. Okay, it's northwest of Lightning Ridge in the middle of very dry country up near the Queensland-New South Wales border, and we have been voted the most boringest town quite often actually, but there's some pretty amazing people that come out of it. But interestingly, the peoples from that land, we stayed on country, and the outputs around mental health and suicides are a lot lower than my family that came from Cooma Nation across the border that were placed on a mission with 52 different language groups. And just to see the difference in the two is huge. So that lived experience around mental illness is actually very, very high. But I am very privileged, like other Aboriginal peoples in the room, that I have over 60,000 years worth of the DNA of this country in my veins. And if we were to think about that in terms of a timeline here, and we use this room, and I was going to get people to stand up, but I won't, 60,000 years, if the whole room equates to that and a millimetre off the end of that wall equates for the time that that occupation, Europeans, whatever you want to say, colonialism, invasion occurred just down the road from here. It's only 235 years. It's a really, really short time for us to pivot and actually change to a very, very different way of doing things. There is no word for suicide in any Aboriginal language that we can actually find. And so the rates that we have in this country are some of the highest in the world. And it was about 6 years ago that I was asked to become a researcher. Okay, so I just finished my PhD, and I'm not even going to read my notes because I never do, but I was asked to become a researcher, and this man darkened my door, and he was my new boss, and he said, "Are you Toomsy?" And I said, "Yes." And he goes, "You're going to become a researcher, and we're going to do something about all these comorbidities or mortality rates that exist in mob." And I'm like, "Who are you?" Thinking, who is this person? And he turned out to be an amazing mentor, and he was really concerned about what he saw in Aboriginal Australia as an endocrinologist. My response was, I don't do anything without permission from community, and so he threw me the keys to a car and said, 2 weeks, go for a drive, tell me what's going on. And so I did. I sat down and I yarned with over 94 communities, and I heard story, what's going on? And it was my story. It was a story of mental health. It was a story of suicide. And it was the story of not being listened to. And so I came back with those stories, and one in particular from a beautiful elder just outside of Rockhampton who had said that she had lost 2 children, another to suicide, 2 grandchildren to suicide, and another one was on suicide watch. So that's 5 family members. And she said, we need services. We need to learn how to do a suicide intervention in real time. Our kids don't kill themselves between the hours of 9 and 5. Please help us. So with that, I had a fire in my belly and started applying for grants. And we got a big NHMRC grant. We've actually had 4. But this one in particular has become a national program, and it was to co-design a suicide intervention training program with and for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. So to date, we have trained over 6,125 Aboriginal people, and some Torres Strait Islanders thrown into the mix as well. We have 14 trainers, so it's a train the trainer program, and it's also a social enterprise model. So the purpose of iAssist is to actually help people to be able to learn suicide intervention training skills in real time in communities. And Ali over there, we've met around the ropes as well because we're playing in the same space, and that is building models of care that actually are relatable to those people that need them most. So I want to thank everybody for being here this evening, and just to remember that we, as Aboriginal peoples in this country, have the answers to our own well, they're not even our problems. A lot of these things have been imposed on us. So please listen. The voice is a really important message that, is asking simply for us to be recognised, okay? To be constitutionally, enshrined, and for us to actually have a say in the way that we do business. And when we do business, we do it well, and we can actually make a massive difference to each other. So I'd like to leave it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Marie, for your work and for your words this evening. Our third winner this evening for the Australian Mental Health Prize is in the lived experience category. Dr. Jeffrey Toogood is the cardiologist, founder of Crazy Socks for Docs Day. His own experience of whispering and judgment for his odd sock choice rather than conversation led him to start Crazy Socks for Docs. He does have some crazy socks on tonight as well. He's a leading advocate for reducing stigma and raising awareness of mental ill health in doctors and health practitioners around the world. Congratulations, Dr. Toogood.
Well, I didn't bring notes, so I have to go with the kind of lived experience talk. I'm really humbled and honoured to be in this room with these incredible people. And I too want to acknowledge the traditional custodians in the land on which we stand, and their elders past and present. And as a healthcare professional, also acknowledge like the great work that's being done to close the gap in what is appalling. I don't know how to say it, but when you hear the kind of incidents of mental health issues, suicide, heart disease, and other incidents in our Aboriginal population, it's heartbreaking. And obviously people are doing great work. I'm also kind of a bit emotional. If you're a lived experience person, I could have been that statistic in the room. I was this close. And part of it was because of the stigma that healthcare professionals face around mental health issues. It is really, really bad. It's getting slightly better. And it delayed me getting help. It delayed me reaching out for help. It delayed my recovery, and it made it very difficult when I went back to work with a mental health issue. And what I wanted to see was a change in the way around the way we deal with mental health in healthcare professionals and doctors, so that we're seen as someone that are embracing our vulnerability, and then we're standing tall for the doctors and other people that are following the juniors. It's very important the most senior people in the hospital embrace that and speak about their issues, and then they're encouraged to do it. I'd like to thank Professor David Newman, who nominated me, Beyond Blue, that trained me in to give my first lived experience talk. And there's many people giving lived experience talks, and they are very, very powerful voices. People engage, and as a former, I know you're on the outside, but as a former Premier in Victoria, Jeff Kennett said when we did an induction, he said, you do not realise the people you reach when you give your lived experience talk. And as a doctor, I've come to realise that. I'm a cardiologist. We get instant access that someone survived, basically, with what we do, but we don't do it with that. I'd just like to leave one other thought, is that the people with lived experience are often, or people with mental health issues, are not kind of encouraged or kind of put up when you're putting them up for appointments, putting them into leadership positions. But I think they are the very person that you should have, because they've had the courage to speak up. They've been through the system. They know how to navigate it, and they've come out the other side much stronger. And if anything, as a lived experience thing, is to show that you can bounce back. You can even bounce back a long way from it. And I thank you so much for this award. And hopefully it's made a difference. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Toogood, for encouraging us to embrace our vulnerabilities and to stand tall. Our government is working to set up 2 peaks for lived experience, one for consumers and the other for carers and kin, and all going to plan. They should be up and running by the beginning of next year, which will mean we'll have a way to give a platform and to amplify the voice of lived and living experience in a really genuine, consistent and sustained way. Now we're approaching our final winner for this evening of the Australian Mental Health Prize in the Community Hero category. Ali is the General Manager Community of the GWS Giants and featured as an adolescent expert on ABC's Old People's Home for Teenagers. With a strong record of community engagement, he exemplifies the qualities of a true community hero. His work in improving the opportunities and well-being of culturally and linguistically diverse communities showcase his unwavering commitment to building a more inclusive and mentally healthy society. Congratulations, Ali. Absolutely amazing season.
Me too, I don't like speeches. I've got all these notes, but I just write them for fun. And then end up reading nothing out of them. But I also want to acknowledge that we meet on traditional land and pay my respects to elders past and present, and also congratulate all my fellow winners tonight, and also recognise and thank the UNSW for this fantastic opportunity. Also want to thank Ziad Surhan from Educators Australia who nominated me for this prize, gained in Sydney and at the back as well, and UNSW Dublin as well. Some of you might be thinking, how can a football club or a person who works at a football club be nominated for an award around mental health or well-being? I guess for me it was a bit different. I came from a school teaching background. Myself, growing up in Western Sydney, being born and bred in Auburn, from a family who came from Lebanon, and at that time fleeing a civil war, I knew that the sacrifices that my parents made, we had to give back to our community and to our people. And leaving a teaching job, because I was a primary school teacher, I got trained in teaching. I didn't want to become a teacher when I first started uni. I was actually in an international business management degree because my father liked the name of it and he can tell the neighbours that his son's in a degree at university. I said to myself, business isn't for me and I want to give back to educating young kids. And a lot of people said that males in primary schools are very scarce and you should go back and try to retrain into primary teaching. The first university I did my first degree at didn't accept me to do a teaching degree. Coming from a multicultural community and multicultural family, first person in my family to go to university, I didn't understand what a GPA score was, or that if you fail subjects at university that it can decrease your opportunities to get into another degree. So I failed the subject every semester at uni for my first degree. It took me 6 years to get my first Bachelor of Arts in Cultural Social Analysis. And when I wanted to become a teacher, the university said, no, your score's a bit too low, you can't get into that degree. So I said, I'm not going to take no for an answer. So I travelled all the way from Auburn to Newcastle, got into a degree at Newcastle and still failed the subject every semester. Did a postgraduate in primary education, didn't finish it at Newcastle, but got a job at a school. I started working at independent school. And some people would say, how'd you start working at independent school if you didn't have a teaching degree? I said, I was enrolled in one. And back then you were allowed to work in an independent school if you're enrolled in a degree. So I stayed enrolled in that degree for years and then decided after 4.5 years of teaching, they'll go back to university and finish the Masters of Teaching. And I went back to the university that said no. And I did my Masters of Teaching at that university and completed that. And then I said, you know what, it's time for me to give back. Had a car accident at 18. It changed my perspective on life and also my perspective on what legacy do you leave behind as an individual for the greater good of your community. So I started thinking about that, and then my younger brother, who was an exercise sports scientist, he did a PhD degree, actually did it with Yusuf over there, said to me, look at this job at the AFL. We knew nothing about AFL. Being born and bred in Western Sydney, all we thought about was rugby league, and all we knew was the Parramatta Eels or the Bulldogs or Tigers. And I said, isn't that sport where people wear short shorts and they jump on each other's back? He said, yeah. He goes, but you won't get that job, I will. I said, what do you say that for? He goes, I'm a sports scientist and they're looking for someone in sport. I said, how about we both apply? He goes, yeah, and the rest is history. 14 years on, I'm still there. He didn't get the job. And I started working for a wonderful club. And to be quite frank, the club is a club like no other. Establishing the club from the grassroots is difficult. It's talking to people from all walks of life. And when they said to me, we need to start to engage community. And when we say about communities, we are the most diverse place in the world. Western Sydney in that time was about 2.2 million people. And when I went to one school, they said they had like 110 languages spoken at that one school. Also, we've got the largest population of First Nations people in Western Sydney. Yes, we do have issues, but there is hope. And the message I want to get out here today is hope. That every single one of you here today is a bearer of hope. And that shouldn't be closed upon anyone. And Dr. Marie's here, and I became a Safe Talk trainer, and I wanted to get out a message to young people from multicultural communities about how they become more suicide alert. Because when I live in this beautiful country and being born here and been given the opportunities, and I find it very sad, and it always sort of gets that emotional spark in your heart to know that people take their life, people end their life. What can we do to make that, I guess, non-existent? How can we educate people to ask the question? And football or sport is not immune. We see it very often now. Sports stars are taking their own life. Not only at the elite level, but also at the community level. And that's where our responsibility as a football club, we started to think about. And when I say football club, I don't kick a footy around. Majority of our programs are all educational or unique experiences that we can give less and underprivileged communities an opportunity to access. So programs like Giant's Hand. In the time of COVID, we delivered 15,500 meals out to Western Sydney. Yes, it was the most locked down place in Australia. And it felt like, and I was saying it to someone else, it felt like it was martial law. It was like I was watching Bruce Willis in that Siege movie where you have to give a certificate, look, I'm allowed to travel. But you know what? Delivering them meals put a smile on people's faces. It alleviated the burden of people who were sick, people who had kids, 4 or 5 kids, couldn't get out to make food or collect shopping. That's what sport's about. Sport's about understanding that without community, we don't exist. And getting out to the people who become your fans and advocates and your supporters to give back. Then we created Giants Wellbeing, educating young kids aged 13 to 15 about mental health, about becoming more aware, how they can assist their friends and family. And then also having the opportunity to work on the ABC documentary, Old People's Home for Teenagers. What a fantastic concept, social connection. Without a connection, and I was speaking to Yusuf the other day, and he said something to me very profound. He said, the iPhone, everyone chases the iPhone. But he goes, what is the iPhone without a connection? Without internet? He goes, merely it's just a phone that takes what? Takes pictures, or you can write some notes. But without the connection, it is nothing. Same as us. Social connection for human beings is paramount. We need it. How do we connect older Australians who are living alone? Loneliness is an epidemic at the moment. In northern Tasmania, people said that there's close to 45% of people living alone. When I was on the show, I saw people who had not spoken or been with people for years, who wished, and I remember Philip, one of the participants saying, all I was waiting for God's bus to come and take me. After the show, after the experiment, after the opportunity to engage with young youth, he said, I hope God's bus has a flat tire. That's the beauty of social connection. So I'm very humbled, I'm very honoured, and I'm very thankful and grateful. I just want to say thank you very much, and I hope we all succeed in everything that we want to do. Thank you.
Thanks, Ali. Well, everyone has given great speeches. I think the football, it's a great game, but it's just worth noticing that many participants experience mental health problems from the stress, whether they're young or professional, amateur, or whatever. So that concludes this, and I'd like to thank the Minister for giving us the awards, but I'd also like to welcome Professor Vlado Perkovic, New University of New South Wales Provost and former Dean of UNSW Medicine and Health, to the stage.
Thank you so much, Alan, and congratulations to Megan, to Marie, to Jeff, and to Ali. And thank you also for speaking for Megan, Andrew, and Fiona. It's wonderful to hear the breadth of activity that we got to recognise tonight and the impact that each of you have had through the work that you've done, and we're very grateful for both of those things and delighted to see those accomplishments recognised with this prestigious award. And I think, again, it comes back to the point that our VC, Professor Attila Brungs, made at the start. There's no one-size-fits-all. All these different parts of society are infiltrated by mental health problems, and we need a comprehensive approach to address them. And by doing that, as illustrated by tonight's winners, we can make a real difference and have a profound impact on people's lives. The Faculty of Medicine and Health at UNSW has a simple mission, that's to improve health, to drive changes and to address the critical health issues facing the modern world. And none are more important than mental health, which is more important today than it's perhaps ever been. The faculty has and continues to change the landscape in the mental health sector. In 2016, the Australian Mental Health Prize was established through our discipline of psychiatry, And I see Phil Mitchell and Henry Bradati, Kimberly Dean, a whole bunch of people from that faculty who are critical to establishing this award here tonight. And the goal then was to improve awareness of mental health as an issue and to reduce stigma. 8 years later, the prize continues to play an important role doing that, but also showcasing how individuals like our winners change lives, and giving hope to people, giving hope to people who are affected by mental health issues, giving hope to their families, to their friends, to their communities, that there is a way of making change that can make lives better. And again, our winners tonight really exemplify that. We're so pleased to see nominations from all over Australia this year, as we get every year for the Mental Health Prize. For all the nominees, thank you and congratulations for your nomination. Your work has been seen and appreciated, and hopefully we'll see your names again amongst the nominees for the 2024 prize. Thanks also to all who've been involved in supporting the Australian Mental Health Prize. An event like this requires a huge amount of work behind the scenes, and on behalf of the university, I'd like to thank the Prize Advisory Board, whose continued commitment to recognising and celebrating this essential area of health is just so greatly appreciated. I'd also like to thank the team from the discipline of psychiatry and the Faculty of Medicine and Health and all the UNSW teams involved for their hard work in once again producing the prize this year. And my thanks also to Professor Alan Fells for the great job he's done hosting the presentation this evening with his sexy voice, and to the Minister for joining us to present the awards and speak so strongly and so clearly about the issues faced. Finally, thanks to all of you for coming along tonight, and for those people who are online for watching the recording and joining us, and more importantly for everything each of you are doing every day to help improve the mental health and the lives of all the people in our community. Thank you, and I'll hand back to Alan.
Thank you, Vlado, and thank you all for coming. And we have witnessed some great leaders today in mental health. There are countless numbers of people doing heroic things in the field of mental health. And we look forward to going through the prize awarding ceremony next year. Thank you.